He woke up to laughter. It was coming from downstairs, bright, loud, and full of joy that didn't belong to him. At first, he just stared at the ceiling. For a second, he let himself pretend that maybe, just maybe, they were laughing because of him, because today he turned 16. But he already knew better. He threw on a hoodie, pulled the sleeves over his hands, and walked down the stairs quietly. No one noticed he was there. Liam was sitting in the middle of the living room floor, surrounded by wrapping paper. He held up a bright red toy car and shouted, "Awesome!" Serena was kneeling beside him, her phone in one hand, her other hand ruffling his hair. "Only the best for my little man," she said with a sugary laugh. Chloe sat on the couch, hugging a stuffed unicorn almost as big as her. "Thank you, Mommy." Hugh Skew, his dad Robert, was sitting at the table with a coffee mug in one hand and his phone in the other. He didn't even glance up as Alex walked in. He stood there for a moment, just waiting. Serena finally looked at him. Her smile faded fast. "What are you staring at?" He swallowed hard. "It's my birthday today." There was a short silence. No gasp, no surprise, no, "Oh my God, we forgot." Just an awkward stillness that made his stomach twist. Dad finally looked up from his phone and said, "You should be grateful you even live here." That was it. That was his birthday gift. He didn't say anything. What could he say? He just nodded like he understood, like he agreed, like he deserved nothing more. Liam zoomed his new car across the floor, nearly crashing it into his foot. Alex stepped back before Serena could tell him to watch where he was going. He walked into the kitchen to grab a glass of water. The sink was full of dishes. A pink frosted cake box sat on the counter, half-eaten, probably Chloe's from last week. The trash was full of wrapping paper, none of it his. There weren't even candles, no card, no cake, not even a fake happy birthday out of guilt. He leaned against the counter and stared at the tiled floor. He was 16 today. His mom would have made pancakes. She would have made him sit at the table even if he pretended he was too old for it. There would have been candles, maybe even a stupid paper crown. She's been gone 5 years, and with every year she fades a little more from this house until he feels like the only one who remembers she ever existed. He took a sip of water, set the glass down, and walked back upstairs without saying a word. His room, small, cold, still smelling faintly of the paint Dad never bothered to finish, felt like the only space that was his. He closed the door, pulled the blanket over his head, and laid there in silence. No balloons, no candles, but no one even said his name. Just him, just Alex, just forgotten. And that one sentence from his dad kept echoing through his mind. "You should be grateful you even live here." That was the moment something inside him changed, not loudly, not with a scream, but quietly, like a candle snuffed out in a dark room, and no one noticed it went out. His room used to be his mom's sewing room. That's probably why it still smells faintly like lavender and old fabric, especially when the windows are shut. The walls are light pink. There are little flower stickers on the corners near the ceiling, faded now, peeling a little. Serena always says she'll have it repainted. She's been saying that for 3 years. "This room's good enough," she told him once, right after he moved in. "You don't need anything fancy." He remembered just standing there, clutching the small box of stuff he'd been allowed to keep. Some clothes, a picture of Mom, and an old wristwatch that doesn't work anymore. Serena gave Liam the bigger room across the hall. It used to be the guest room, with 2 windows and a view of the street. He filled it with Legos and action figures and half-eaten bags of chips. Chloe's room is next to his, painted lavender with glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to the ceiling. His has pink wallpaper that makes him feel like a shadow in someone else's life. Dinner is the same story every night. Serena serves Liam and Chloe first, then she eats. He gets what's left, usually cold mashed potatoes or some weird mix of rice and veggies that nobody else wanted. Sometimes he just says he's not hungry and goes upstairs. They never ask why. Liam throws food on the floor when he's mad. Chloe wipes her greasy fingers on the couch. Serena laughs like it's cute. Dad sits silently, scrolling through his phone like he doesn't even notice. Last night, Liam spilled juice all over the table and blamed him. Alex hadn't even touched it. Serena pointed at him and said, "Clean it up, Alex. Don't make this harder than it already is." Harder for who? At school, he tries to keep his head down. He doesn't talk much. Teachers like him because he does his work and doesn't cause trouble. But that's all he is. Quiet, invisible. Except to Noah. He's his best friend, the kind of guy who gets into trouble for talking too much, but somehow still pulls straight B's. He's loud, he's funny, and always has gum in his pocket. Dude, you look like you haven't slept in 3 days, he said yesterday, tossing him a chocolate bar across the lunch table. I'm fine, Alex said. You're lying, Noah said. Alex shrugged. Noah leaned forward, chewing the end of his straw. You want to crash at my place sometime? My mom won't care. She loves you, man. Alex smiled but didn't answer. The truth was, he wanted to say yes so badly it hurt. He wanted to pack his bag and go with him right then, but he knew he wouldn't. He never did, because deep down he kept hoping things might change here, that maybe Dad would remember something about him, that maybe Serena would get tired of pretending he didn't exist. But they never did. When he got home that day, Liam had taken his earbuds and flushed them down the toilet for fun. Serena said, "Boys will be boys." Dad didn't even react. Alex went upstairs, shut the door, and stared at the pink walls. This wasn't his room. It never was. It was just the place they let him sleep. He spent 3 weeks on that science project. Late nights, glue burns, cardboard cuts, and hours of measuring and remaking just to get it right. A model of a wind turbine with tiny spinning blades. He even painted the base green so it would look like grass. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. He left it on the kitchen table the night before the due date, carefully placed. He even put a sticky note on it that said, "Please don't touch." He should have known better. When he came downstairs in the morning, he froze. The turbine was in pieces on the floor. The blades were crushed. The base was cracked down the middle. His name tag was smeared with juice and footprints. Liam was sitting on the couch, licking jelly off his fingers. "Did you do this?" he asked, trying not to yell. Liam grinned. "It fell. You kicked it, didn't you?" "It was ugly anyway," he said and laughed. Alex picked up the broken pieces, his hands shaking. God, he couldn't even breathe right. Serena walked in, holding her coffee. "What's going on now?" "Liam destroyed my project," he said, his voice cracked halfway through. She glanced at the mess and shrugged. "It was probably an accident. He said he kicked it." "Oh my God, Alex, not everything is a crime scene. You're being dramatic." He stared at her. He wanted to scream. He wanted to cry. But mostly he just wanted her to care. Dad walked in just then, tying his tie. "Your son broke my science project," Alex said, holding out the crushed turbine base. Robert looked at him, then at Serena. "What's going on?" "I told you," she said with a sigh. Alex is being dramatic again. He's blaming Liam for everything. He couldn't believe it. He's not blaming, he admitted it. Dad's voice got sharp. "That's enough." "But Alex said. "That's enough," he snapped. "You're grounded. No phone, no internet. Don't talk back to your stepmother again." His mouth fell open. Liam smirked behind Serena's legs, and Alex just stood there, holding the pieces of his hard work in his hands, like none of it meant anything, like he didn't mean anything. That night, he tried to fix what was left of the project. He was sitting on the floor in his room, glue on his hands, when Dad came in. He didn't knock. "You embarrassed your stepmom this morning," he said coldly. "I just told the truth." "She's trying her best," he said. "She always takes." Alex muttered. He took a step forward. "What did you say?" "I said she always." Before he could finish, his hand cracked across his face. It wasn't the pain that got him. It was the silence after, the kind where you expect someone to say sorry or maybe show regret. But he just turned and left the room like nothing happened. Alex sat there for a long time, his cheek burning. Then he picked up his journal and wrote, "Mom, are you watching? Because I really need you tonight." He didn't cry. He just curled up on his mattress, still wearing his clothes, the broken project in a box beside him. The next day, he brought the pieces to school anyway. He didn't even bother explaining. Miss Thompson, the school counselor, called him in around lunch. He guessed one of his teachers saw his face and said something. She had short hair, glasses, and a voice so calm it made him nervous. "Alex," she said gently, "everything okay at home?" He nodded too fast. "Yeah, I just tripped." She gave him a look like she didn't believe him, but she didn't push. "All right," she said. "Just know my door's open anytime." He didn't say anything, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like someone was actually talking to him, not around him. Still, he walked out of her office. He kept his head down because even if someone cared a little, it still didn't fix anything. Back home, the grocery bags were heavier than usual. 3 of them, packed to the top, handles digging into his fingers like wire. Serena stood by the trunk, arms crossed, sipping her iced coffee like she had nowhere else to be. "Take those up to the kitchen," she said, not even looking at him. "Be careful, this one's got eggs." Liam and Chloe ran past him into the house, laughing and yelling something about video games. Of course, they didn't carry a single thing. He hoisted the bags up, the weight uneven. One strap was already cutting into his skin. He shifted it to the other hand, but it didn't help much. The stairs were steep. Our driveway curved up toward the back door, and the sun was already setting. He climbed one step at a time, feeling sweat bead on his forehead. His right foot slipped a little. He caught himself. One more step, but the second bag swung, knocking into his knee, and that's when it happened. His foot slipped. He dropped to one knee hard. The plastic bags tore and groceries scattered across the concrete. A can of soup rolled down the steps. He felt a sting on his forearm, a deep scrape from the rough edge of the step. Blood started pooling fast. He sat there, frozen. His heart was pounding in his ears. Serena stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at him. She didn't rush, didn't ask if he was okay, just sipped her drink and said, "Don't be clumsy next time." Then she turned and walked inside. He sat there for a moment longer, just staring at the soup can still rolling in slow circles at the bottom. His hands were shaking. His arm burned. But what stung the most was her voice in his head. "Don't be clumsy." He gathered what was left of the groceries and carried them in. His shirt sleeve was already soaked red. No one noticed. Liam was screaming at the TV. Chloe was jumping on the couch. Serena scrolled through her phone and told him to clean the floor if he got blood on it. He didn't eat that night. There was food, plenty of it. They'd had pizza, extra cheese, Liam's favorite. But by the time he walked into the kitchen, there were just crusts left in the box. Serena said he should have come sooner. He went to bed hungry again. The next morning at school, he tried to keep his hoodie sleeve down. The cut was still fresh, scabbed over now, but ugly. In the cafeteria, Noah slid into the seat across from him and popped open his lunchbox. He had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Doritos, and a juice box, like they were still kids in 4th grade. He looked at Alex's tray, a milk carton and a half-eaten apple. "You good?" he asked. Alex nodded. Wasn't really hungry. Noah didn't believe him. He never did. He tore a sandwich in half and pushed the bigger piece toward him. "Take it." "I'm good," Alex said. Noah wasn't joking, so he took it. He ate it slower than usual, like if he made it last long enough, maybe it'd feel like a full meal. "Thanks," he said quietly. Noah shrugged. "Don't mention it." Later in the locker room after gym, he pulled off his hoodie and forgot about the cut. One of the other guys saw it and asked, "Dude, what happened to your arm?" He mumbled something about falling. Noah gave him a look, the kind that says, "I know you're lying," but he didn't call him out. He just sat beside him and tapped his foot like he was thinking real hard, but didn't know how to say it. After he left, Alex sat there alone on the bench, surrounded by echoing voices and the smell of sweat and cheap deodorant. And for some reason, he almost cried. Not because of the cut, not because of Serena, but because someone gave him half a sandwich without asking for anything in return. They were doing pull-ups in gym when his sleeve slipped. He didn't notice right away. He was too focused on not looking weak in front of the other guys. His arms burned, his palms were slick. He could feel his hoodie ride up as he stretched. That's when he saw her watching. Mia? She was leaning against the wall, waiting her turn with the other girls. Her hair was tied back, face unreadable. Curious, not nosy, just quiet. When he dropped back to the ground and tugged his sleeve down, she looked away like nothing happened. But he knew she saw the bruises. He didn't say anything. Neither did she. The rest of gym passed in a blur. He showered quickly, kept his head down, didn't talk to anyone. Noah was out sick, and it felt like walking a tightrope without a net. His locker clanged when he opened it between classes. At first, he thought someone messed with it. That wouldn't be new. Liam had broken 3 of his notebooks at home last week for fun. He was still writing on crumpled pages. But inside his locker, nothing was broken. There was just a chocolate bar sitting on top of his math book. It wasn't his. He hadn't bought it. He didn't know where it came from. There was no note, no name, just the chocolate, wrapped in an open wrapper, still cold like it had been bought that morning. He looked around the hallway. No one was paying attention. Just noise, people bumping into each other, laughter that didn't touch him. He picked it up slowly. It wasn't much, but it was something. For a second, he just stood there staring at it like it might disappear. No one had given him anything in a long time. not without wanting something back. That same afternoon, Ms. Thompson called him in again. He walked into her office, still holding the chocolate bar in his hoodie pocket like a secret. She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit down, Alex." He did. She studied him with that calm expression she always wore, not forced, not fake, just present. "I noticed you've been quieter than usual," she said. "I'm always quiet," he replied. "Quieter," she repeated. He stayed silent. The hum of the air vent filled the space between them. "I'm not here to pressure you," she said after a moment. "But I need to ask again. Are you safe at home?" His throat tightened. He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. She didn't rush him. She just waited. Finally, he whispered, "Home isn't really home." That was all he said, but something changed in her face when he did. Not surprise, just sadness and maybe a little bit of relief, like she'd been waiting for him to finally crack the door open, even a little. She reached for her notepad and started writing something down. "I'm glad you said that," she said softly. "You don't have to go through this alone." He nodded, but the lump in his throat stayed. He wanted to say more, he really did, but part of him was still scared. Scared that if he let it all out, he'd fall apart completely. He left her office without saying much else, but when he stepped into the hallway, he felt lighter. Not healed, not fixed, but less alone. Later that day in chemistry, he saw Mia sitting 2 rows ahead of him. She didn't look back once, but as he reached into his pocket and felt the chocolate still there, something told him it had been her. She saw the bruises, and she didn't look away. The house was quiet. Serena had taken Liam and Chloe to some birthday party across town, and Dad was working late. That meant for once, he had the place to himself. No yelling, no crying, no footsteps stomping up and down the stairs. Just silence. It felt strange, almost dangerous, like if he breathed too loud he'd break it. He crept upstairs to the attic. The door stuck a little, but he knew the trick, press and twist at the same time. It creaked open slowly. Dust floated in the shaft of light coming from the small round window. He hadn't been up there since he was a little kid, since before Mom died. The air smelled like cardboard and mothballs. Piles of boxes were stacked in the corners, some labeled, some not. He climbed up, careful not to step on the weak boards. He didn't know what he was looking for. Maybe he just wanted to find a part of her that hadn't been erased. After a few minutes of digging, he found a small box tucked behind an old rocking chair. It was taped shut, but the writing on the side made his heart stop. Alex Mom's things. His hands shook as he pulled it out and sat on the floor. He peeled the tape off slowly, like opening something sacred. Inside were a few folded blankets, an old perfume bottle, a framed picture of him and her from when he was 5, and at the bottom, a letter. It was sealed in an envelope. His name was written on the front in her handwriting, the kind he hadn't seen in years. He just stared at it for a minute. He was afraid to open it, afraid of what it might say, or maybe afraid that it wouldn't say enough. But he opened it anyway. "Dear Alex, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay longer. There are things I wanted to teach you, things I wanted to say, but life doesn't always give us the time we deserve. So listen carefully, okay? This world won't always be kind. Some people will hurt you, forget you, or try to make you feel small. Never forget who you are. You are kind. You are strong. You are mine. Don't let the world tell you what you're worth, baby. You were already enough the day you were born. When it gets hard, and I know it will, remember you have my heart inside yours. That means you'll never be alone, not really. I love you always, Mom." By the time he finished reading, his eyes were full of tears. Not loud ones, quiet, steady tears that rolled down his face without permission. He held the letter to his chest and sat there for a long time in that dusty attic. The kind of silence that felt heavy but not empty. He folded the letter carefully and placed it in his wallet, right behind his school ID. That day, something shifted inside him. It wasn't a big change, not something anyone else could see, but it was like a light turned back on. A tiny one, just enough to remind him he was still here, still worth something, still hers. He climbed down the attic stairs slowly, his heart pounding in a different way than before, not from fear, but from something stronger. When he passed by the hallway mirror, he saw his reflection and didn't look away. This time, he looked tired, pale, bruised, but he also looked alive. And that was enough for now. It started with the phone call. He was halfway through math homework when he heard Dad answer it downstairs. At first, his voice was low, calm. Then he heard something crash. 10 minutes later, Serena was screaming. He didn't move, just sat there on the edge of his bed, frozen, staring at his unfinished graph paper like it could protect him. "You're useless," she shouted. "I worked there for 12 years, he yelled back. "You got fired. What kind of man loses his job right before rent is due?" Then came the sound of glass breaking. Chloe started crying. Liam ran up the stairs, yelling for his mom. And then something worse than silence followed by a single sharp slap. He heard Serena gasp. Then he heard her scream. It was low, shaky, scared. That's when he got up. When he came downstairs, he saw her on the floor, holding her cheek. Dad stood over her, fists clenched, red-faced and shaking. Liam and Chloe were pressed into the corner, too scared to move. He turned when he saw Alex, eyes wild. For a second, he thought he might hit him too, but he didn't. He just walked out the front door and slammed it shut behind him. Serena didn't even look at him. She was too busy reaching for her phone with trembling fingers. Her voice cracked as she said the words he never thought she'd say. "Hello? Yes, I need the police." When the cops arrived, everything turned cold. Serena told them what happened. He stood in the hallway, heart racing, wondering if he should say something. And then one of the officers turned to him and asked, "Have there been other problems in this house?" His mouth went dry. He looked at Serena. She didn't even notice him. He looked at the cops. Then he opened his mouth and told the truth. Everything. He told them about the broken science project, the slap, the cut from the groceries, the cold dinners, the bruises, the silence. He told them all of it. He didn't cry. His voice didn't even shake. He thinks he'd run out of tears weeks ago. They asked if anyone else at school knew. He gave them Miss Thompson's name. The next morning, Ms. Thompson pulled him from class. He thought maybe he was in trouble for saying too much, but when he got to her office, she wasn't alone. Principal Miller was there. He'd seen him around, but never up close. He had a soft voice and eyes that looked like they actually saw you. "We're here to help you, Alex," he said. "We've already contacted child services. We're going to do this the right way." A woman came in later, brown coat, kind face, big folder in her arms. "Mrs. Davies," she said, reaching out her hand. "I'm from Family Support Services. Let's talk." And that's when the final piece fell into place. That afternoon, a man he'd never met showed up at the school. His name was Mr. Peterson. He looked nervous when he saw him, like he didn't know if he'd even want to talk. "Alex," he said, "you probably don't remember me. I was your dad's best friend back when your mom was alive." He stared at him. "Why are you here?" He sighed. "I came because you deserve the truth. I should have said something years ago." He sat down beside him and pulled something from his pocket. The photo was old and bent, but he recognized it instantly. Him, Mom, Dad, all smiling. "This was taken at your 7th birthday," he said. "Your mom wanted to frame it." He nodded slowly, heart pounding. "She loved you more than anything," he said quietly. "After the funeral, your dad didn't want reminders of her. He gave away her stuff, cut ties with her friends, including me." His chest felt tight. "Why?" "I don't know," he said. He said it hurt too much. "But it wasn't right, and I should have come back sooner." He looked down at his hands. All this time, he'd been wondering if he was the problem. Maybe he'd done something wrong by still missing her. But now he realized something. None of this was his fault. Not the yelling, not the silence, not the bruises or the empty birthdays or the pink walls. He'd been living in someone else's shame, carrying their choices like they were his. But they weren't. By the time he went home that night, with Mrs. Davies walking beside him, it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like the final scene of a play he was never supposed to be in. And for the first time, he wanted to leave it behind. The first thing he noticed was the smell. Grandma Eleanor's house smelled like pancakes and cinnamon and something warm he couldn't quite name, but it felt like safety, the kind that wraps around you like a blanket and whispers, "You're okay now." Her house was small, old, and a little cluttered, but everything had a place. The fridge was covered in magnets and handwritten recipes. The couch had soft cushions that didn't sink too far in. Her cat, Leo, didn't like him at first, but started following him around by the second day. The guest room had pale blue walls and a patchwork quilt on the bed. The ceiling fan squeaked and the window creaked when he opened it. He loved every broken part of it. "You can sleep in as long as you like, sweetheart," Grandma said that first morning. "No one's rushing you anymore." So he did. He slept late, ate warm pancakes. He sat at the kitchen table while the morning sun poured in through the window. casting soft yellow light on the wooden floor. It was the same light he remembered from when he was little, before everything changed. The same light that made him feel like Mom was near. At school, he walked through the front doors without ducking his head. Noah found him near his locker. No words, just a fist bump and a grin. He didn't ask questions, didn't push, just nodded like, "You're still standing. I knew you would be." Mia passed by during second period and smiled. Not the polite kind, but the kind that says, "I see you now." And he thinks he smiled back, for real. Not forced, not fake, just honest. During lunch, he pulled out his own full sandwich for the first time in months, ham and cheese. Grandma had packed it in foil with a little sticky note. "You are strong." Gee, he didn't even care if anyone saw it. That night, as he sat at the kitchen table doing homework, Grandma brought him a mug of hot cocoa and said, "You're safe here, Alex. You always will be." He believed her. The light above them buzzed softly, warm and steady. The kitchen light. It used to flicker when he was a kid. She never changed it. She always said it made the room feel alive. Now every time he saw it glowing above him, he felt something loosen inside his chest, like he could finally stop holding his breath. Around 8 p.m., his phone buzzed. "Serena, hope you're proud of what you did." That's all it said. No apology, no regret, just guilt tossed at him like a stone. He stared at the message for a long time. His thumb hovered over the screen, but he didn't reply. He deleted it, just like that. No anger, no second thoughts, because she didn't get to live in his head anymore. Later that night, he sat in the kitchen long after Grandma had gone to bed. The house was quiet. The dishes were done. The cat was asleep. The kitchen light hummed above him, casting a soft, golden glow. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he let himself breathe, not a shallow, careful breath, but a full breath, safe, still here. The courtroom was colder than he expected, not freezing, just the kind of cold that sinks into your hands and makes you rub your palms together out of habit. Robert sat across the room in a stiff gray suit. He looked smaller than Alex remembered. His hair was messy, his jaw tight, eyes avoiding his. For the first time in his life, he looked like the stranger he had always felt like. Serena wasn't there. She didn't need to be. This wasn't her battle anymore. Grandma Eleanor held his hand the whole time, gently, like she was reminding him he didn't have to go through this alone. Mrs. Davies sat with them, flipping through notes. Principal Miller nodded at him when he passed him in the hall. Miss Thompson gave him a quiet thumbs up. It was time. The judge asked if he had anything he wanted to say. His chest tightened, but he stood anyway, walked slowly to the center. Everyone was looking at him, and for once, he didn't shrink under it. He pulled out the folded letter from his wallet. It was a little worn now, but the handwriting was still clear. "My mom wrote this before she passed," he said. His voice was steady. "I want to read it out loud." And then he did, every word, even the part that still made his throat ache. "Don't let the world tell you what you're worth. You were already enough the day you were born." When he looked up, the room was silent. Even the judge leaned in slightly, like the words had reached something inside her too. "I just want to live in a place where I'm not afraid," he said. "That's all." The judge looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at Grandma. She didn't even pause. "Custody will be granted to Eleanor Harper, effective immediately," she said. "This hearing is closed." When he stepped outside, the sun hit his face like a brand new beginning, not blinding, not too bright. He let the light fall across his skin and closed his eyes for a second. He wasn't broken. He was just finally free. He didn't think he'd win. When Ms. Thompson handed him the flyer for the statewide writing contest, he almost threw it away. Theme: resilience, it said. At first, he didn't even know what to write. He'd heard before he wasn't special. He wasn't a hero. He was just a kid who used to sleep with one eye open. But one night after Grandma went to bed and the kitchen light buzzed softly above him, he opened a notebook and started writing. The title came first, "The Kid Who Slept in Silence." And then it all spilled out. He wrote about pink walls and cold dinners, about broken projects and chocolate in lockers, about bruises that faded but memories that didn't. He wrote about the attic, the letter, the courtroom. He wrote about his mom, and somewhere in the middle of it all, he realized this wasn't just a story about pain. It was a story about survival. 3 months later, Ms. Thompson burst into the hallway holding a gold envelope. "Alex," she shouted out of breath. "You won." He stared at her. "What?" "You won first place out of the whole state." She handed him the envelope, and inside was a blue and gold ribbon and a letter that started with, "Dear Alex Harper, your words changed us." He held that ribbon in his hand the next weekend when he visited his mom's grave. Grandma waited in the car while he walked through the soft grass. He hadn't been there in a long time, not because he didn't care, but because it hurt too much. This time felt different. He knelt down in front of her stone, clean, simple. His name wasn't etched in the smaller one beside hers. He pressed the ribbon gently against the cold marble. "I made it, Mom," he whispered. "I really made it." The wind rustled through the trees like she was answering him in her own way. Back at school, things changed, but slowly. He still had quiet days. He still flinched at loud voices sometimes. He still had to remind himself that being loved wasn't something he had to earn. But he wasn't invisible anymore. He started a small support group with Ms. Thompson, just a few chairs, a safe space, and no pressure to talk unless you wanted to. He was nervous the first day. Then Noah walked in, carrying a bag of chips, and said, "So, we're just hanging out and being sad together? Cool, I'm in." Mia joined the next week. She didn't speak the first time. She just listened. The second meeting, she sat beside him and handed him another chocolate bar. No note this time. She didn't need one. They met every Thursday in the art room. Some kids came and went. Some stayed. They talked about fear, about anger, about not being believed. They laughed more than he thought they would. Sometimes they cried too, but none of them felt alone anymore. One afternoon, he caught his reflection in the hallway mirror. The bruises were gone. The cuts had healed, but the scars were still there, faint lines on his arms, little reminders etched into skin. And for the first time, he didn't want them gone. They didn't burn anymore. They didn't scream. They whispered, "You made it out. You matter." That night, he sat under Grandma's kitchen light with his notebook open, and he wrote 5 new words at the top of the page. The kid who survived.